that might be, as you see Bobby Fong took a shot late here in the race to get by Beaubier. And how about this shot in the last corner? Beaubier telling me I had to do something, I had to try something, and it almost cost him third, but it didn't. Herrin ends up winning the race, and then you have Beaubier second and Bobby Fong third.
Really impressive what happened there. And as we look inside the numbers, the top three here, entering COTA, 278 points. And then after COTA, 294 for Bobby Fong. And the way this championship is playing out, yesterday with Bobby Fong's third place finish, it definitely worked out the best for Josh Herrin to win and Cameron Beaubier to finish in second spot. So for Bobby Fong, even though finishing third, he still holds that championship lead. And boy, Jason, when we got into Circuit of the Americas and we were talking about the difference between, say, you know, the BMW, the Ducati, and the Yamaha, we know that the Yamaha can be down on top speed a little bit. The scenario played out perfectly for Bobby Fong as best it could.
Absolutely, it did. And I think he's going to come back firing. He tried some stuff this morning, as all the riders did. So we'll see what happens. And, you know, Greg, earlier on today, I was able to talk to both Cameron Beaubier and Bobby Fong about their day yesterday and what they thought they might be able to do a little different today.
You know, I'm happy to get third for sure, to get podium, because it was super close. But man, I had to try something with Herrin in the last corner. I got in there super late, but had to try something. Tried a couple things in warm up this morning that might help us in this afternoon in the race. So we'll see how it goes.
I think it's going to be a little bit more dicey. I think people are going to want to lead a little bit more because the pace was, I mean, it was really slick yesterday, but I think everybody can go a little bit faster for sure. So I just got to play my cards right. You know, I just got to do a little bit things differently. I was frustrated after the race. I was happy about the third, but I was frustrated because I felt like I should have done something a little sooner, but it's hard to fight with those guys. They're super fast riders and they're competitive. So hopefully luck's on our side today and we just keep pushing.
So great insight for both those riders on what their mindset is like heading into today. And of course, they had that mindset last night when they tried to make improvements to the motorcycles for today. But really, even though Cameron Beaubier thinks that maybe Ducati has increased their motor, I think you got to look at Josh Herrin and say, yeah, the pace wasn't as fast as it may have been, but Herrin controlled the pace. Let's get down to the third member of our broadcast team, Jamie Howe.
Another rider that was right in the mix of that battle at the top of the field yesterday was Richie Escalante, and unfortunately an electrical issue right at the end of the race did not allow him to capitalize on the pace that they were able to find, but he was certainly coming for those top three riders. And I spoke with him just before he got his helmet on, getting ready for racing action today, and he said they went out during the morning warm-up. Everything felt like it was all back together. They've gone back to that same setup that they did have in the motorcycle for the first race yesterday, and after the steady improvements that they've made over the course of these 3 days, he is certainly ready to go out there and see if he can get himself back on the podium for a third time this season and prove that he has the pace that he needs to stay in the front of the Superbike grid.
All right, so thank you for that, Jamie. Now, Jay, this is Circuit of the Americas, and this racetrack is certainly entertaining. It's got a lot of elevation, but it also has a lot of corners. It sits at 3.4 miles in length, and there's a couple really key spots to look for. Turn 1 is definitely one of them where people leave themselves vulnerable, and as we go down into turn number 11, entering that long back straightaway, a lot of passes can happen there and at the end of the straightaway in turn number 12. And then finally, we have seen a couple of races decided in corner number 20. But Jay, that's the overhead look at Circuit of the Americas. Why don't you give us a little bit more of an inside and onboard look, if you will, with our Insta360 track lap?
Well, when you look at this bridge as you rip up into turn 3, Greg, this is going to be flat out. You back shift 1 here, get into this section here, it's pretty much rolling, and then by the time you get to turn 6 here, this is the longest of the S's. It goes on forever. Then you got a quick switch back into another left. So after that, you're uphill. This is at the end of the back straightaway, and you can see there's a lot of room out in front. But Greg, you're coming from a, what, 190 plus mile an hour, I think we saw yesterday, down to about 30 mile an hour. This is turns 16, 17, and 18. They feel like they go on forever. This is right behind the paddock. You can see the garages and the hospitality suites over to your left. Back shift 1 into turn 19. Then you talked about turn 20. You go down this little chute here into the final corner, and it's a short run to that checkered flag.
It's a 360 lap. Hey, yesterday this happened to the 3-time Superbike champion. He's looking to bounce back today. Is Jake Gagne. Can he get it done? Race start in 5 minutes.
MotoAmerica Superbikes is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series, and by NXT Bets. Play MotoAmerica for cash, multiple race classes, live on top sports books and DFS platforms all season long.
Okay, we're down here in the park for a little bit of a delay for the top three. Big crowd down here. Matthew Skoltz, a double win this weekend. One finger now on that championship trophy. You could be the champion on the Saturday in New Jersey. Talk us through race 2.
Yeah, it definitely helps getting those extra couple points over PJ, but you know, I'm not counting anything out. I'm just going to go to Jersey, try to get podiums, and then we'll kind of worry about the points then. But you know, PJ put up a hell of a fight today. Campy, you know, incredible to actually see him out there racing after that massive high side. But thank you to the Strack Racing team. They gave me an awesome motorbike. I think we led almost every single session, pole, broke the race record. So awesome weekend for us, and looking forward to Jersey in 2 weeks' time and hopefully trying to wrap up the title.
Excellent, great job. Come on, let's hear it for Strack Racing Yamaha. Matthew Skoltz. We're now going to move across to PJ Jacobsen in that second position. And PJ, another podium, and we go to New Jersey with the championship still in play.
Yeah, for sure. That was a hard race, and then especially what happened in the beginning with the oil and stuff. So it's kind of sketchy those first couple laps. But yeah, Matthew and the Strack team, they've done a great job this weekend. They were in another level, so it was hard. It was chasing them all weekend and stuff. But I tried my hardest in that race to put up a fight and stuff, and Blake was passing me back, and we had a good battle there going, and then until he crashed. But yeah, then once Matthew got by me, he kind of walked away, and I really didn't have much left there. So yeah, I just can't wait. Can't thank the whole Rahal Ducati Moto team. We have all of our sponsors out here this weekend. Graham's here, X-Bell, Ray from Roll or Die. My whole team has done a great job all season long, so it's great to be a part of this whole racing program. And then to get announced to go to Superbike next year is huge on the new V4R. So it's been awesome, you know. And then I'm here tomorrow for the Ducati Day, so it's been a pretty good weekend getting a podium. So I'm really happy, and my team deserves all this hard work.
Thanks to PJ Jacobsen. Let's move across then and talk to a third place. And come on, COTA, make some noise. A heroic effort from Cameron Peterson to even start this race to bag a podium. That was impressive.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Knew it was going to be a tough one. Honestly, as tricky as the oil was in the beginning there, I'm kind of glad it happened. You know, those 3 less laps, I think helped. I was starting to run out of some adrenaline at the end there, but you know, all the effort that the team put in, I figured I better just line up and show the effort back. You know, these guys have put so much work into this program. The least I could do was line up and give it a good fight. But yeah, I just did everything I could, was kind of cruising around back there, and I knew something big was going to happen in the last corner, so just sat back and brought the thing home and on the podium. So thank you to the team, thank you to Ducati, thank you to just everybody in my corner. A lot of people helping me out this weekend, especially after the crash. So yeah, just look forward to New Jersey.
Okay, thanks, Cam.
And the
Welcome back, Circuit of the Americas, on a beautiful Sunday to go racing. And the Superbike grid is full of riders ready to get after it here. And boy, it's going to be interesting to see, Jason Pridmore, what happens in this race for what happened yesterday. Because what we know is, if you look at qualifying, 207s for the top 3, 208s. You know, Sean Dillon Kelly in 4th place, and you know, even for Hayden Gillum, he qualified at a 208, but yesterday the pace was that kind of high 209, really low 210. And you know, some of the riders were talking about, look, it was greasy out there, so we aren't really sure if we had more. And the other riders, like Cameron Beaubier, thinks that they do.
Well, how about yesterday, Richie Escalante's pace? He, for the longest time, for those last 4 or 5 laps, he was the only rider in the 209s, 209.5s, like you said, where our 3 leaders were doing 210s. And Bobby Fong said, I could tell somebody was catching me. I knew somebody was catching me. I saw it was Richie. Richie catching me, and he didn't want to be involved in any of that because Richie Escalante is trying to get his team on the podium, and Bobby was worried about losing some points. I'm very curious to know what they're going to do today with that Vision Wheel M4 XR Suzuki bike. This guy was on fire yesterday, Greg, and if he can get up there, he'll be able to draft these bikes, I believe, down the back straight as well.
And if you watched us yesterday, you know that Richie Escalante, after that massive charge, all of a sudden his bike stopped. It was just a frayed wire, Jay, like something as simple as an electronic issue.
Literally simple.
Such a heartbreaker for the team, especially as we know Suzuki's here, American Suzuki's here. They're looking at their 40th anniversary livery.
You just saw Bobby. I used to do that too. I'd be frantic. Have my vents open? You know, because I always be worried about my vents being open and that kind of thing. But STK as well. STK had just a similar little, not a problem actually where the bike stopped, but he just kind of lost a little bit of grip. He had some issues during the race. He's another guy that can be close. I felt when I talked to Cam and when I talked to Bobby and a few of the other riders, they all felt like that lead group might be a little bit bigger today. So we're going to see how that is. Now, Greg, we also have a little bit of cloud cover out there, and
it's a little cooler than it was yesterday. I guess a little bit cooler.
So yeah, it's gonna, you know, it's ramping up, and you can't say it enough that how close this championship battle is. I mean, we're so lucky that we've got 3 riders right now, all on different brands too. You know, we have a Ducati, BMW, and a Yamaha, all on different brands. As close as they are. This is going to go all the way down to the wire when we get to Jersey in a couple of weeks. So for anybody that's even thinking about coming to Jersey, it's going to be a really good weekend there. I think we'll have both of our major championships, both Super Sport and Superbike, decided in Jersey.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. They're on their warm-up lap now, Jay. So we know that there was an incident earlier on today with the track. So how important is this warm-up lap, and tell us what they're looking for?
Well, a lot of these riders have just got done watching a previous race that we had where we had a big oil spill from about turn 15 to turn 19. We were on a delay there. That was in the Super Sport race. But these guys all got to watch that Super Sport race that we just had. They're going to see that the track definitely got good. As we get a look here at the starting grid, Cam Beaubier, 207 flat over Gagne and Herron. Then we have SDK, Bobby Fong, and Richie Escalante starting there on row number 2. Hayden Gillum, Ashton Yates, JD Beach, all Hondas, Benjamin Smith, Max Flinders, and Nolan Lampkin. Nolan finding his way around on that Honda as well. Cornbow, Waters, Max Stouffer, welcome to America. Good to see him come over from Australia. Lewis Campbell and Bobby Davis just outside there in row 6. Then we got Arango, Zach Schumacher, AJ Blackman, Giannato. So yeah, Greg, as far as going back to that track conditions, the track conditions were enough where the winner of our Super Sport race earlier got back down to some incredibly fast times. So I think it's going to be okay for sure.
And by the way, play MotoAmerica for cash. Superbike Baggers and Super Sports Series are now live on top Sportbook and DFS platforms. Scan the flow code or visit nxtbets.com/playma to see what's available in your location. Sign up, exclusive bonuses right now, and make your picks. Boy, Jay, this is going to be such an interesting race. Now, the one thing for all of the classes that we had here this weekend, well, for Super Sport, for Talent Cup, some of the other classes, we go to New Jersey with 2 races remaining on the calendar for them. But for us in the Superbike category right now, when we go to Jersey, it's the second of the triple headers that ends up making up 20 total races for the season. So with this race here, there's 25 points on the line, but we still have 75 points to go.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, you know, again, this tricky first turn is what I'm going to be watching because, you know, even Greg, when you get up there, if you have to make room for somebody to your right, there might be somebody on your right, and there might be somebody on his right. So you've got to be really careful. This guy here, I'm just hoping that the 54 gets a tremendous launch today and gets up that hill somewhere in that top 5. I do believe that when you look at the first 6 bikes, I'm talking Beaubier, Gagne, Herron, STK, Fong, and Escalante, those first 6 bikes, I think if they don't mess with each other too much, we could see, instead of just a 3-rider battle today, I think we could see a 6-rider battle. I'd love to see Hayden Gillum in there as well on the Honda, of course.
The question is, what's the number 1 plate going to do? Because Herron, even though he's 3rd on the grid, a little bit further back from turn 1, he's been getting spectacular starts this season. Lights off and we're away, and Herron got another good launch.
Yeah, but Beaubier did as well. I think, he wheelies though. See that wheelie?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Nope. Okay, Cameron got up there, and look, Bobby Fong comes from the 2nd row. Knifes around.
Down.
Yeah, there we go, Greg. That's what happens up. That's Max Flinders, who just cannot have any luck right now, Max. I had a good talk with him today, and he's going to get that bike picked up. But here you go. Bobby Fong to the front. So he goes around the outside of Beaubier, just like we saw him do to his teammate yesterday, Jake Gagne, through turn 2. Bobby and I actually spoke today about that very move that he just made on Beaubier. Now the 50 has got to try to gap as quickly as he can here. He's got Beaubier and Herrin right behind. Then you've got Gagne. Then it looks like SDK and Escalante. So our first 2 rows have got off absolutely perfect. And then I believe it is Hayden Gillum in 7th place, just behind those front 6.
All right, so the first test coming up here for Josh Herrin, the number 1. Under braking they go, and Bobby Fong on that attack progressive Yamaha onto the back straightaway we go. Now we're going to see what kind of speed Fong has, and Josh Herrin back there in 3rd spot on that Ducati. He had his way on the back straightaway with the rest of the field, and Herrin able to make up a little bit of time, but it's going to be under braking Cameron Beaubier on the Tytler Cycle BMW, who will take over the lead.
Yeah, now let's talk about Cam Beaubier a little bit, because we kind of started to find out a little bit of what happened. He did have a bicycle accident earlier in the week, Greg. He is fighting an injury in his right wrist, and he told me today, he's like, you know, it's okay. It's not great. Obviously, it's not perfect. But as far as the scenario goes yesterday, he was just happy that he didn't lose 3rd to Bobby. But look at Cameron go right now, Greg. He gets out front off that back straightaway, and he's starting to try to get away from these guys. He felt like he could have got away, but there was a couple little things that he had happen. But Bobby's so fast down into here. And I will also talk to you a little bit about some of the lines Bobby is running and his philosophy on a couple things. I was able to talk to him about that last night. So as the race goes on, let's get it to play out a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about some of that with Bobby also.
First time to the stripe of the 12. Beaubier is going to come across the line as your leader, then Fong, then Herrin. Gagne, Sean Dillon Kelly, Richie Escalante, Hayden Gillum on the Honda with his teammate JD Beach behind in 8th place. For Cameron Beaubier, I spoke with Dave Weaver, his crew chief, about this BMW that he's on. And here at Circuit of the Americas, Jason, this track is all about balance. There's elevation changes, there's these switchbacks through the S's, and there's the long straightaway, and there's some bumps around. So when I talked to Weaver about Cameron's setup, he said, look, one of the things that we're having to do is the balance of the bike. Cameron said, I want this bike to turn through the S's. What's that creating is the bike wheeling on the back straightaway, so they have more interrupt on wheelie, so it's slowing his motorcycle down. And so for Cameron Beaubier, this is the perfect scenario. He needs to do the lap times he wants to do out front with no interruptions, and that's what he's got right now.
You want to know what another word for balance is when you're talking to crew chief?
Sure.
Yeah, it's compromise.
Yeah,
so,
100%.
So you've got to make sure that you're taking advantage of your motorcycle in the spots that you feel you can be the strongest, and you're willing to give up a little bit in other spots. Now, for Cam Beaubier and Bobby Fong to not see that red machine go by them just yet, that's going to give them a lot of confidence, although Herrin runs it in extremely deep into 12. Gagne runs a little bit wide, and you see there's Bobby again running in a little bit tight. Jamie, what do you have about Josh Herrin?
Well, talking to Josh today in relation to that leg injury that he has from the accident back in Mid-Ohio, he said it's a little bit more sore than it was yesterday. And when he went out for the warm-up session this morning, he really felt like now that the swelling is starting to go down a little bit, that he's really starting to feel the effects of that fractured fibula that he is suffering through. And every part of the racetrack, he said, is a challenge here. He's hoping to go out and just capitalize and get as many points as possible, but he certainly is not at the physical level that he was at in the race yesterday to be able to fight nearly as difficult. But he did say, let's not forget about the fact that adrenaline comes into play. He has a whole team behind him that he doesn't want to let down, so he is certainly going to go out there and give it his all, but his all is not what he had in race number 1.
Yeah, Jason, as we know, we just saw in the background Josh Herrin lose the rear end of the motorcycle. He nearly crashed, and that's not going to help his leg at all.
That's going to be losing the front there, Greg. He got in there wide, he got in there deep. You could tell he was fighting it to try to get that bike hooked and turned, and you're going to see when he did that, Greg, he actually saved that with his leg. That front end was gone, and I'll tell you right now, those kind of slow corners, when you lose the front, it's almost impossible to get it back because that gyro is slowing down and it's going so much slower. Very easy for the motorcycle to tuck underneath you. When you get into a faster corner, you can sometimes save those a little bit easier. Herrin did a tremendous job being able to get that bike back upright.
Yeah, but there's only so many matches you have in your match.
You're right.
And I think saving that might have burned one of those matches with how sore his leg is. We also heard, unfortunately, that Richie Escalante is in the pits. the Vision
Here
Wheel.
you go.
Here's a look at it.
He's in deep and he's in wide. Now watch this as he tries to hook it back.
Whoa!
That front of the bike just goes out from underneath him. That is tremendously close to tipping over. And the problem that does is any rider, I just think about anybody, it's going to take you a couple of laps to trust that again. So for Herrin, he's going to ramp back up, start to get his confidence back as he's in wide. You see him tipping in early right there?
Yeah.
Just got in a little bit early, slowing that bike down. Now now all through here, you can see, he just looks like he's a little bit more cautious, but he'll build back up. Gagne is starting to come up behind him as well. Escalante, how's his luck? Such a shame from yesterday where he almost got to the podium. As you see Herrin wide again, Jamie.
Yeah, for Escalante, it was an electrical issue yesterday. He brought the bike to the team. Now just talked to Frank Aragaki, the crew chief, and he said it's only running on 3, so they've plugged into the bike. They're going to see if they can get any information out of the data, but another unfortunate turn of events here for the 54.
Yeah, because even this late in the season, any laps are always good laps to have as we roll off to the last race of the season in New Jersey in less than 2 weeks' time. So they're going to get that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki hooked up to the computer, and hopefully they'll be able to get some valuable data. So Bobby Fong was coming under fire from Josh Herrin, but you can see after he lost that front,
that's it.
I just think that really it just started to create a tremendous amount of pain in his leg.
Through everything you and I have seen, we've just missed the fact that Bobier went 2:07.4.
Holy kite.
In a couple of laps ago. But Bobby Fong keeping him on is 2:08.1 for the leader this last time by. Bobby Fong 2:08.2. So Bobby is still pushing hard, and I think, Greg, as we have seen, Bobby comes so strong at the end of these races. He still has a lot of energy and he has a lot of motorcycle underneath him. He is definitely not out of this, but Josh Herrin right now, after that little mistake, and we'll have to ask him if they made any big changes on the bike that maybe warranted that small slip up.
How fast is Cameron Bobier's 2:07.497? He set the fastest race lap around Circuit of the Americas last year at a 2:07.891, so nearly 0.4 of a second quicker is Bobier in this race, and he is just riding it. He doesn't need to go that fast. He's got a decent cushion over Bobby Fong, but the other thing we know about Fong is he'll never, ever give up during this race, and Bobier knows that as well, and he also knows, not only from the pit board, but what we've found out from racers in all categories is that they can look at the Jumbotron, the big screen, and they can see what's going on in the race when they get a glimpse of what's going on behind them.
Yeah, some of my friends that ride at home and things, they get really discouraged when they find out that riders can actually be watching TV as they're going around at lap record pace, and that's what you are. You can do that. You can also look at scoring pylons and other things like that. So there's Bobby Fong going into turns 16, 17, 18, this big long trio of right-handers. Looking at this lap, Greg, he gained 0.2 in the first split, lost 0.2 in the second split, and has lost a further 0.3 in the third. So see how this fourth split plays out, but Cam Bobier has definitely extended his lead ever so slightly here.
And Bobby Fong qualified 5th place at a 2:08.465, and he's already gone 2:08.1. So for Bobby Fong in qualifier, usually in qualifier 2, which is Saturday morning, Dunlop provides them with a qualifying tire, a super softy that here only goes 1 lap, and Fong able to go faster already with his setup. But now for Josh Herrin, the number 1, he's coming under fire from Jake Gagne, the 32, who had one of the slowest crashes that we have seen this season. Just that little tip over yesterday, so a good bounce back from Jake Gagne. And we'll see if Herrin's able to hold him off, because we still have 7.5 laps to go in Superbike Race
what
number 2.
What a view this is. You can see Gagne had a notion to go through on a Herrin. And how about Sean Dillon Kelly? That's just him off the back of these two as well. So another Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki bike is trying to take the fight to that podium spot, much like we saw Escalante do yesterday.
And you know, in talking to Sean Dillon Kelly today, Jay, we were talking about the race yesterday, and he said, look, I'm able to do this morning just a bunch of 2:09s, no problem at all. Yesterday, he said it was a struggle to do a high 2:11. So right now for Sean Dillon Kelly, he's done a 2:09.391 as his fastest and a 2:10 flat, Jamie, but it looks a lot more comfortable today than yesterday.
Yeah, to that point, it's been consistency that's been the issue for Sean Dillon Kelly here this weekend. He said in qualifying, he said, you know, I can close my eyes and I can do one really fast lap, but over the course of a race, he's got to open his eyes and actually be able to fight with that Suzuki. And he finally found, like going into the race today, that they were able to pick up on some things yesterday, and he could probably take it into the top 3. And with a little bit of a gift of his teammate, unfortunately, Richie Escalante not being out there battling for position, maybe SDK can find himself back in contention for a podium.
Yeah, because third place is Josh Herron, the number 1 on the Warhorse HSBK Ducati racing machine, and obviously the number 32 of Jake Gagne and that Attack Performance Progressive Yamaha. So it's just up the road. It's in sight for Sean Dillon Kelly. But in addition to talking to him about that, Jay, I asked him at what part of the race does the bike work the best, and SDK told me that new tires with the Suzuki is best, and as the race wears on and his tire performance starts to drop, it's really when he starts to struggle. So we're at that stage of the race now as they continue to work on that motorcycle to find the balance of tire grip on this one. Hopefully Sean Dillon Kelly's going to be able to find something and stay with these riders. Now they're all identical, 210.0s last time by for Herron, Gagne, and SDK.
And I'm going to tell you right now, as close as these 3 are, Bobby Fong has got it back under a second at the front of the field, 208.4 to a 208.6. So Bobby's continued to grind on the back there of Cam Beaubier, trying to figure out a way to get himself up to the back of Cameron. So as Gagne goes to work on Herron here, and Sean Dillon Kelly trying to get in that mix, there's another Yamaha up front chasing that BMW as well. For Herron, obviously, Greg, just not quite as comfortable. You can see that bike snapping around a little bit too, even under acceleration. I've seen him lose the rear of the bike quite a few times. So what a difference a day could make as Gagne continues to put the pressure on the Ducati rider in front of him.
Yeah, but don't you feel that the situation that Gagne's teammate Bobby Fogg was in yesterday, especially with this long back straightaway with this Ducati, and the way Josh, even as I'm sure as stiff and as hurting as he is right now, it feels like that for Gagne's in the same situation Fong was in, which is trying to figure out where am I going to be able to make it stick. It's the possibility of passing the number 1, but then how you got to make it.
Yeah, you're going to have to get creative, because it's probably not going to happen at the end of that back straightaway unless Josh makes a big mistake getting onto that back straightaway and allows these guys to be able to get really in the draft and duck out at the end of it. But for right now, Gagne looks like he's all over the back of him through this little section. And but see how Herron runs that kind of tight line into there? He's really getting the bike slowed there now. We saw on the first few laps, Josh just couldn't seem to get the bike slowed the way he felt comfortable doing it. That's where we saw him lose the front as well. All through here now, Jake's going to have to start to go to work and use that experience that brought him so many Superbike championships in the past. Try to figure out a way to get by the number 1.
You're watching the battle for third place, the final spot on the podium with the number 1, Josh Herron, number 32, Jake Gagne, and there's Sean Dillon Kelly on the 40. That's Ducati versus Yamaha versus Suzuki. Out front, way up the road, Cameron Beaubier's already gone by. He's got a 0.7 of a second lead over Bobby Fong. That lead, by the way, is shrinking out front as we continue to watch this battle for third. It was between Beaubier and Fong 1 second. It's now down to 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, and SDK is just 2:10.1. He's 2/10 quicker than the 2 in front of him, but it just seems like that gap stays the same. And look how good Herron is down through turn 2 on the way into the S's. Now, by the time they get out and through the S's, look at Gagne just sweeping up onto the back of Herron all the way through here. This is turn 6 and turn 7. But Gagne, this is a place where you can charge up underneath the rider through the middle of these S's, but you got to be a little bit closer than that. And the Yamaha will draw up onto the back of Herron here. That's what I'm talking about with Josh, though. He knows the places that are important to be fast, so he rides the bike in a way where he knows that it's going to be difficult for people to do anything with him, and then he's extremely good under braking. So to your point earlier, Greg, you made a great point. Bobby Fong was in this position on the same exact motorcycle yesterday that Gagne's on, and he's having to try to think about all the same stuff that Bobby was thinking yesterday as Gagne.
You can hear the difference between that V4 and inline 4-cylinder 1000 screaming by our camera. With 5.5 laps to go, look at Herron. Just goes right to the apex and gets that Ducati turned. Now out front we go, as this lead has been hovering around 0.9 to 0.7 of a second. 208.8, 208.6 for Fong. So he was able to get back a couple tenths on Beaubier. And Beaubier, if you think about looking at the screen we were talking about.
Oh, man! Whoa! That is a huge front end slide. How did he just save that, Greg? I don't even know how he saved it. Now you're going to watch Cameron for the next couple turns. He's going to be a little careful tipping it in. When that happens, things go through your brain. Is my front tire losing air? What could it be? For Cameron Beaubier, though, he will dig in. He'll get on the back of Bobby. But his first run through these next S's, as you watch this, Greg, watch this front tuck. It's gone. Right there, it's gone. Look at his elbow.
Whoa.
Look, this is what I'm talking about earlier. A faster corner, it's easier to save a slide like that because it will go for longer. The gyro wants to keep spinning. In a slower turn, it's much harder to save. Now look at this gap. This gap will be bigger after they go through the S's. I'm going to look at the splits and see what the first split is to the second. He's got 5 laps to go, does Cameron. He's been in this position before. He will feel what the bike is giving him, and then he will start to charge back. Also, he will know maybe he got out a little bit wide there,
maybe,
in there, and he was trying to get the bike turned back.
But he lost a little bit of confidence because when he threw his hand in the air, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, but look, 36.5. He matches what Bobby did in the first split. Right now for Bobby Fong, this is the best case scenario. But look at this is what a many-time Superbike champion like Cameron Beaubier does. He's put it behind him already. He's on the back straightaway, taking some deep breaths right now. We just got to hope that didn't hurt his wrist at all. And now he's back in the draft of that Yamaha down the back straight. Let's see if he tries to go right back through. It looks like he's going to try to, Greg, and he does. He gets it right back.
So for Bobby Fong, he lost the lead, and that's our 5th lead change of this race between Bobby Fong and Cameron Beaubier.
Now, talking about lines, I said I was going to bring this up. In our next shot, after they go through this left-hander, I want you to see the difference in lines going into the turn 16, 17, and 18 range. They're going through this tight left. Watch how tight Bobby gets into this right-hander compared to Beaubier. I asked Bobby about that earlier. He said, Jason, I like to get in there a little bit earlier. When I get out wide, I don't feel like I can get the bike to turn. And while their bikes are out wide and maybe doing a little bit of chatter, I get my bike in early. I control it through a little bit of brake and RPM, and then I drive through. Did you see how much he gained on Beaubier through the middle of that turn?
Absolutely.
That's because Cam went through there and was rethinking some things, you know?
Maybe
just rethinking
not
some
as
stuff.
fast. So look at the front end of his bike.
Yeah, they're going to see it here. That's the chatter that I think Cam has had this year at times. But this is still early in the corner. See how it's already balanced itself back out?
Yep.
But that put him a little bit wider and got him out in the dirty stuff because the next lap through, he was quite a bit tighter. But look what Cam's doing right now, Greg. He goes 209.6, and he's trying to open up that gap again. Bobby just needs to keep putting the pressure on.
I mean, what a save. Save of the year so far that we have seen from Cameron Beaubier. And pretty incredible.
And the other thing, too, Greg, about that is Bobby will have seen that. These two will be talking about that in the podium. If they both make it there, they'll be talking about it. Jamie.
Certainly can't wait to hear what that conversation is like. But in the case of Cameron Beaubier, you made the point earlier about that injury that he has, that cycling accident this week. And I checked in with the team to see about those compromises that they were making in terms of setup. And they said that for the race today, they've actually had to go back from that just a little bit because it was putting them outside of their optimum operating window in terms of setup for that motorcycle. So Cameron's a little bit out of the comfort zone right now in terms of what he wants to have with his wrist, but he does have a little bit more power underneath him with that BMW.
And that's a very good point, Jamie, because when you look at the BMW M1000RR, this motorcycle really at all levels seems to work in a very narrow operating window. And when you do get outside of that, it kind of goes, it becomes a hard motorcycle to ride awfully quick. So that balance for Beaubier and the injury on top of it, you know, when we looked at having that motorcycle go through the S's and having to compromise on the setup, a lot of that has to do with the fact that his wrist is hurting because, you know, in talking to Jake Gagne, Gagne was telling me, you know, we know that he's had wrist issues in the past, hand issues with strength, and he said the hardest bit is going through the S's because Gagne used a lot of leg like Beaubier to steer the motorcycle, but through the real fast S's here at COTA, you have to use a lot more arm than you're used to, and it puts a lot of pressure on muscles you're not using as much at normal parts of the racetrack.
100%, and that's all true because the faster you go, the harder it is to get that bike to turn the directions you want to go. Even if you use a lot of leg and a lot of feet, it definitely gets harder. Cam Beaubier right now, Greg, as he goes across the line, both these guys in the high 209s, 209.7 to 209.5. Battle for third's about 8 seconds behind. Man, Cameron went through that last stadium section so clean and got that bike upright so early out of turn 15. And he was able to put that incident behind him so quickly. But look at Bobby just draw up on the back again on this Yamaha. And, you know, Greg, one of the funnest things about the championship right now is having the different brands that we have in the front. We're really seeing how each brand can accentuate a lap time in different places. The BMW is doing it in certain spots. The Yamaha does it in certain spots. Ducati and Suzuki's also. And you can see Bobby kind of draw up on the back. They go through this first split, and it looks a lot quicker than a 1/10 of a second, but it was a 1/10 of a second quicker between Beaubier and Bobby Fong. We have about 2.5 laps to go as they get ready to fire him off down that back straightaway once again.
And thinking forward about this championship with Bobby Fong leading Cameron Beaubier by 13 points in this championship, the difference between first and second place is 5 points. So if it finishes like this right now, we're going to head off to New Jersey with 3 races to go in the season, and it's only going to be 8-point difference between these two. If Bobby Fong can figure out a way to reel in Cameron Beaubier and make a last lap pass, then it would extend the lead from 13 to 18 points. So quite a shift.
You made the point earlier, Greg, that it's the end of the race where we've seen Bobby Fong be strong so far this season, and that really comes down to the way that the weekends have panned out from Friday through both of the qualifying sessions. Bobby's done more laps than anybody else up to this weekend. You look at the track time that he had available to him, and he didn't take full advantage of it. He had a small mistake in the first qualifying session, caused a slight tip over, wasn't happy with the bike in the second qualifying session, so he doesn't have that same flow experience that we've seen throughout the course of this season, and he doesn't have that same lap count aboard that number 50. So in terms of race distance, yesterday was the first look that he had at it. He was strong at the end of the race. It wasn't quite enough to move any further up, so we'll see what the team was able to learn from that with just 2 laps to go.
Well, what's interesting about that too, Jamie, is in talking to Richard Stamboli, his team owner and crew chief, he had mentioned to me, you know, Bobby Fong gets to go off when the season's over and race 2 World Superbike races, and that's a non-Dunlop tire that they race on is, oh, look for a moment that Gagne might be going. And so they had spent 2 days testing on the World Superbike spec tires, and that tire for Bobby Fong gave him a tremendous amount of confidence in the front, and Stamboli told me he felt that, you know what, Bobby may have had a lot of confidence in the front, and those 2 front-end crashes on Friday were him getting back used to those Dunlop tires.
Well, I'll be honest with you, as you see SDK now draw up onto the back of the 2 in front. Sean Dillon Kelly wants a piece of this action as well. The thing is Greg, is that I believe that when he goes over to those tracks also, we remember Jake Gagne going over there a couple of years ago with Richard and the team. Portimao is where they went to, and I think as a crew and as a rider, that might be the hardest track on the schedule in World Superbike to try to learn, you know, get a Friday morning practice and right into qualifying, as SDK is going to take a shot at Gagne here. SDK wants to go take a shot at Heron for sure. So when you start to think about that, Greg, he's going to Estoril and he's going to Jerez, which will be a little bit easier tracks, I think, for him to learn. So I think he'll be able to do just fine over there.
Wow, SDK lost a lot on the drive out after making that pass, and Heron able to scoot away from those 2 inline 4-cylinder 1000 machines, the Suzuki, and look who's on the charge. That's Hayden Gillum back there on the number 69 machine. So Hayden on that CBR 1000 RRSP2 looking for a good result here today. And Jay, keep in mind, it's Heron. He's got to control this pace because right now he sits there in 3rd place. That's 16 points. Heron's in this championship, but if he makes a mistake and these 2 or 3 riders get by him, he could lose a handful of points, possibly up to 6 points. So Heron's got to keep his wits about him, which we know he's capable of doing, but it's about how desperate are these other riders behind him to get on the podium. And now we have 1 lap remaining in race number 2.
Let's go back to race number 2 at VIR between these 2 guys, Heron and SDK. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but you remember the contact that was made between Heron and SDK. You know that Sean Dillon Kelly is going by his crew right now, holding out that pit board, and wants to bring home a 3rd place for them if he can. So we'll see where he decides to try to make this pass, because Heron, like to your point, pulls away ever so slightly down that front straightaway again. SDK, I think if he's close enough, if he can get close enough through these S's, he'll take a shot to try to park Josh down in that turn 11 area. So as they get through here, let's see if that Suzuki's roll speed can roll up onto the back of the Ducati. You can see how much time, Greg, he's already started to gain through this spot. Still a little bit too much. Heron did a really nice job.
Really clean.
Yeah, getting through that long right-hand corner. The gap at the front, just so you know, is half a second. We're monitoring it as both the leaders have gone through that first split. They've gone through it at exactly almost the same first split. Bobby's not going to be close enough here, Greg, to do anything with Bobby. I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get this spot from the number 6. I think if you told Bobby he was going to come here and finish 3rd and 2nd at COTA on the Yamaha, I believe even Richard Samboli and the crew would be like, hey, that's okay. We got a couple of podiums. Let's march on to Jersey, where this guy, we've seen him put it on pole on a stock 1000 bike as Hayden Gillim has gone down. That would be the turn 11 area as well. So he goes down. Hayden picks the bike back up. He should still possibly be behind his teammate JD Beach, I believe. That's JD off in the distance. But here you go, Greg.
Yeah, here we
Only
go.
A few corners to go.
So Cameron Beaubier, a final couple corners to navigate in this championship hunt. Second in the points to Bobby Fong. If he can get through these last couple of corners, is going to close this margin to 8 points in this championship with 1 round and 3 to go. What a performance by the Tytler Cycles machine. Cameron Beaubier, little bit wide, but drives up, takes the checkered flag, and will take the win on the back of a new track record here at Circuit of the Americas. And what a performance from Josh Aaron. He dug deep on that final lap. As he comes through the final corner, he gets on the gas, and he will score 16 points in 3rd. And boy, I bet he's happy to see that checkered flag. It was that big save. And here is the 95 of JD Beach on that stock 1000 machine. So JD Beach coming across the line in 6th place. Great result for him, and his teammate Hayden Gillim with a miscue on the last lap will bring it home in 7th. And how about Benjamin Smith on the 78? A top 8 for Benjamin Smith on that Flow for Law Racing Yamaha. So race pace for Cameron Beaubier, and I told you a 207.497, a new Superbike track record, lap record here in race trim. He did that on lap number 2, followed it up by the 8.1, 8.4, 8.6, and then that 10.8 was after that big save that he had. Boy, if you want to know what Cameron Beaubier thought about saving that front end slide, we're going to have it for you on the other side of this break, so don't turn your TV off. Hang tight.
What a performance from Cameron Beaubier in that race, Raj, to come back from that huge moment through the fast rights at the end of the lap and almost immediately bridge that gap to Bobby Fong. He knew he couldn't sit behind his championship rival. He's picked up an all-important 25 points now.
Yeah, just an incredible save. I mean, it doesn't get much closer than that. And, you know, when he came around the start-finish line after that mistake, he was 6/10 behind Bobby and was able to pass and pull out 3/10. But for yesterday's best lap time in the race, Beaubier did a 2:08.9, and today his best lap's at 2:07.4, a second and a half quicker than they went in yesterday's race. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, really impressive. A 70th Superbike win as well for Beaubier in his career, and he's been so impressive over the years, but this year he really has done a good job, especially these last few rounds, just to dig back in and give himself the chance of another championship.
Yeah, and you can see right now that took a lot out of him, and his hand injury. This place is really tough. The first part of the track on a Superbike, I couldn't imagine coming in with a hand injury like he has, able to be so strong through there. But now he's put himself right back in this championship battle. He has a good chance going into New Jersey.
Yeah, it's going to be an 8-point lead for Bobby Fong going into that final round. Triple header as well. So for Cam Beaubier, it's still in his hands up to this point. But for Josh Herron, 3rd in this race, and drops another 4 points to Bobby. It's going to be, what, 22 points is going to be the gap for him at the end of this weekend. And you'd imagine for Josh, after the race win yesterday, there'd be a bit of disappointment in this one, but the gap back to the race leaders was so big that you'd imagine the injuries or another issue are causing that problem for Herron.
Yeah, he just didn't have the pace today that the top 2 riders had, but for Josh, on his bad days, he still gets 3rd, and that's why he still has a chance for this championship. And, you know, we go to New Jersey, and there's 3 races, so there's still a lot of points up for grabs and for, you know, opportunities for some of the guys in front of him and the points to maybe make a mistake.
What about the pace in that race, though, as well? Because Beaubier's fastest lap, 2:07.4, and we saw even on the last lap, still down in the low 2:09s. They were having to dig in deep in this one.
Yeah, and Bobby's best lap was about a second quicker than yesterday as well. So it was just a blistering pace, and not sure we really expected that with the track temperature being as high as it was today. But, you know, Beaubier's team, you have to give them Tytler Cycle. You got to give them credit. They made some changes overnight, and that bike was working really well this afternoon in the heat.
Yeah, 3-2 for Bobby Fong over the course this weekend. Coming into it, you'd imagine on the Yamaha he would have been willing to take that with both hands. And for Bobby, podium yesterday, podium today, it's a good performance and good damage limitation on what was going to be a tough weekend for him. We'll go back to Greg and JP and Jamie Howe's down there in the podium area to get us our interviews.
Welcome back to Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, Texas. After an incredible race, I mean, you get a race lap record from Cameron Beaubier. You get one of the craziest saves that we have seen so far this season, and a big race win with massive championship implications.
Hell of a ride.
As his dad saying, heck of a ride, kinda. Let's take a look at these results, JP. So Beaubier by 1 second over Bobby Fong. But then another great performance when he needed to dig deep. Herron was there. He held off the advances of Gagne and Kelly to finish on the podium. And then J.D. Beach relegated to 6th after his teammate hit the deck. Smith, Yates, and Lewis. Let's get down to Jamie, who's in winner's circle.
And the celebration continuing for Cameron Beaubier with big congratulations from everyone on the team down here. We've talked about the fact that the pace was a lot quicker than yesterday. New track record for you, a second and a half above the race pace from yesterday. But let's talk that moment that you had out there. You nearly lost it. You saved it. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, that was a really scary one. I put my head down there at the beginning. Man, got off to a good start. Peter was messing with the launch control. They made my bike a little bit longer, and the thing launched off the start. It was awesome. And I was like, man, I got clear track. I gotta put my head down. And honestly, I didn't know how my body was gonna feel because I've been getting tired after 3 laps all weekend after what I'm dealing with. And but yeah, just dug deep. And man, it was a long, hard race. Bob kept me honest the entire race. I started struggling with the front, pushing the front around a little bit, and the long right-hander, and had one massive moment and saved the championship flashed before my eyes. So happy I kept that one up, and man, just kept my head down. And like I said, Bob kept me honest. It was a hot pace, so hats off to him, and hats off to my whole Tytler's BMW crew. They've been working so hard, dealing with my stupidity at home, crashing bicycles and stuff, and they never stopped working hard, getting me comfortable all weekend. So massive thanks to them, Bell, Alpine Stars, the good Lord for keeping us safe out here, and yeah, on to Jersey.
For the 5th time this season, our race winner, Cameron Beaubier. Congratulations.
Incredible for Cameron Beaubier, and a good job for him after an incredible save. We'll be back with more after this.
Our second place finisher now with an 8-point lead in the Superbike Championship. Bobby Fong, that battle that you had out there today with Cameron Beaubier, it was hot, it was an intense one. How much were you willing to risk to put on the line to go for a race win versus just getting as many points as possible?
Honestly, I was giving my all to stay with him. He rode a hell of a good race. You know, kudos to him. But, you know, we're confident. To be this close to this track, you know, it brings a lot of confidence to myself and the team, but the Attack Progressive Performance crew, man, they're unbelievable. It's a long, hot weekend, and we're looking forward to Jersey, and yeah, we're just going to keep the ball rolling.
Congratulations on another podium result. Our championship points leader, Bobby Fong, moving over to our 3rd place finisher from the win yesterday. Sitting down on the podium today, obviously still dealing with the injuries from that incident back at Mid-Ohio. Josh, for you to take away another podium result, how important is this for you with now 3 weeks remaining in between the last 3 races?
We needed the win. You know, I feel like I got defeated today, which I did, finish 3rd. We just got to go into Jersey knowing that we got 3 rounds, and I guess just honestly hope for some rain, even though the rain hasn't been our best friend in the last couple years on this bike. Feels like we found something at the beginning of this year where I feel like we can go fight for some wins. And last year, me and Laura split wins at Jersey, but I think right now we need some rain. I'm gonna be doing the rain dance when I get home because yeah, we got too big of a gap to really rely on getting good results in the dry because we know these guys are gonna be right there with us. Was definitely hurting out there today. You know, right from the beginning, Cam had good pace. I just couldn't get the grip with those guys, and I was having to ride over my head to try to even be able to see them. And just at some point had to like realized that we've had way too many rounds this year where we didn't score any points, and I needed to score some points this weekend. It's a disappointment for sure, but this is part of racing. You can't win them all, and we just got to keep our heads high and hope the Jersey goes better for us. But happy with the win yesterday, happy with how the entire Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati team worked this weekend, and excited to get going to the next one.
Certainly isn't over till it's over. Nice job, Josh.
For Josh Herron, that podium position, it's important points, Rog, but obviously for Herron, just putting the pressure on his rivals as well there, 22 points being the difference. He's going to need to go to Jersey and get some results, but he also knows that he goes in there as a bit of an underdog.
Yeah, just there's really no pressure for Josh going into the last race now. Just go there and they must win. And it's just disappointing when you get to this point of the year and you know that you need to make up some points and you don't have the day that you expected you had from the day before.
Yeah, it's an interesting battle all the way through this season between our top three, and we go down to the last 3 races of the year in the Superbike class. Let's go back to Greg and JP to bring us to a close here for the Superbike class.
MotoAmerica Superbikes is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series, and by NXT Bets. Play MotoAmerica for cash, multiple race classes, live on top sports books and DFS platforms all season long.
With 3 races to go, the standings have Bobby Fong now 8 points ahead of Cameron Beaubier. Josh Herron with 22. There's 75 points left, so only these 3 remain in this championship hunt. And we have 3 races coming at you at New Jersey. But our coverage from COTA continues after this as Cameron Beaubier celebrates top of the box.
Still got one more race left here at COTA, but Rog, before we move on to the King of the Baggers, what about that battle behind Josh Herron? Those last couple of laps, Jake Gagne and Sean Dillon Kelly really brought the fight to him, and SDK ended up coming through to finish in 4th.
Yeah, and the impressive thing in that scene also in that race was Hayden Gillum there was right behind that battle, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, just matching their lap times, but it was just too far back to actually make a little bit of the time up. He was able to close in a little bit, and that's hard to do whenever you see somebody a second and a half up the road and you're just matching their pace. So that was another good ride, I think, for Hayden and that Honda team. But for Sean Dillon Kelly, great bounce back. Hasn't been a great weekend. They've been a little bit off all weekend, and then he comes in today and he's able to finish with almost getting on the podium.
Yeah, not a bad weekend for the M4 squad when you think about Richie Escalante before that electrical problem yesterday on the final lap. But for the Suzukis, they've been in the fight for the podiums again this weekend.
Yeah, and for them, I think this was a good track coming in after their success they had last year, Richie getting on the podium here. And unfortunately for Richie today, he's had a great weekend and he didn't get to finish off what he had started.
Obviously for Cam Beaubier, that save, you could see just how tough it was for him out there, and Beaubier, after that bicycle crash, still able to come away with 45 points from this weekend, and that's the critical thing for these 3 riders fighting it out for the championship. For Cam Beaubier, he won the round.
He did, and he also, he's going to make this week and a half seem a little bit longer for Bobby now. He's put a little bit more pressure on them and that team, and that's what you want. But, Bobby has got really good people around him, and they knew it was going to be tough this weekend. They expected it, and now they go into a track where, I think all the bikes are going to work really well. But the Yamaha, there's not going to be those long straightaways where they struggle at.
It's interesting right now because we've got multiple champions, Josh Herron and Cam Beaubier fighting it out with Bobby Fong. Bobby hasn't won a Superbike championship, but for the Attack Performance team and Richard Stamboli and the squad, they know how to win championships. They've done it year in, year out. So he's going to lean on his team for that experience going into the final round in Jersey.
Yeah, and I think he leaned on them after the 2 crashes on Friday and then struggling Saturday morning, that second qualifier, then coming out and looking like the old Bobby in race 1. So he's able to bounce back, and Bobby's having an incredible year. He's doing what he's needed to do. He's won those races, went on a winning streak, got himself back in the title fight, and this weekend he did all he could.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about those final 2 rounds, the Superbike World Championship, but it's the final round of the MotoAmerica season that he needs to focus on right now, and it's going to be 2 weeks' time. We'll be back in action in the Superbike class in Jersey. 3 races that weekend and 3 opportunities for Herron and Beaubier to take those points off Bobby Fong's championship lead.
Welcome back. Circuit of the Americas Superbike race number 2 in the books, and huge championship implications. We are so excited to be heading off to our final race of the 2025 season in New Jersey Motorsports Park with 3 races on deck. As Cameron Beaubier celebrates, we can't wait to see you in 2 weeks' time. For Jamie and Jason, I'm Greg. We will see you in New Jersey. We're thundering to the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. This weekend is MotoAmerica Superbikes at Texas from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, as we set the stage for our 6th round of 7 Mission King of the Baggers. Race number 2 coming at you. The sun
So I've made it down here onto the grid. Final race of the day then, Mission King of the Baggers. Great to see over my shoulder. You can see that big intake of breath for Cam Peterson after a heroic ride in the Supersport race. He is going to go out and do battle in Mission King of the Baggers. That is so, so good to see. Loris Baz, of course, on the podium yesterday. Feeling good, Loris? Yep, all good from Loris Baz. We're not going to have a chat to him. I want to come round, though, Steve, onto the front row of the grid if we can, buddy, and get a word with the newly